It's October 28th. You know what that means? Happy birthday to Q. That's all the singing I'm gonna do. October 28th. So 1 year ago, QAnon began their first posts on 4chan. And absolute thank you goes out to all of those patriots, those nameless, faceless, courageous patriots behind the scenes that are doing the great work necessary to free this country from the tentacles of evil. And not only thank you to all those patriots behind the scenes doing that work, but thank you to all of the other citizen researchers, digital soldiers, all the other citizen journalists out there that are doing that work necessary to progress this great awakening. None of us would be here without anybody else. We wouldn't be here without Q. Q wouldn't be able to do what Q is doing without us spreading the messages. Truly, this is what where we go one, we go all means. So to me, it's just a nostalgic day. It's been a year of massive growth for myself. Couldn't even have imagined that this last year would turn out the way it has. So there's a lot of nostalgia, reminiscing going on today for me. And I think we all need to prepare ourselves for the rest of this year. I think the rest of 2018 will be glorious, and that is going to set us up for a golden 2019 where we really get to work and it's going to get fun. So stay positive out there, everybody. Q's going to be back soon. I don't doubt that. We're actually going to talk a little bit of Q news here in a minute. VIPAnon got his photograph with the president back, so we have to talk about that. I just wanted to say thank you to Q and thank you to everybody else out there. Now, one thing I do want to mention before we talk about VIPAnon's photograph, Above Majestic, the documentary that I helped make, is now for pre-order on iTunes. It drops in, the 28th now? 2 days on the 30th. So you can pre-order it on iTunes. I think you can pre-order it on Amazon. And in 2 days, it drops on the 30th for everybody out there to view. So I'm super stoked. Again, surreal moment here, seeing my name up there, director, producer, and to be in this movie on iTunes. Thank you to everybody out there who's gonna go and watch it. I think it's going to be sweet. I haven't even seen the final version of it. I've seen the second or third rough cut, but I'll be excited to see this version. Okay, let's talk about VIPAnon's photograph he got back. So on 8chan, VIPAnon, which, remember, a few weeks ago, Trump held a rally. VIPAnon was one of the people that was selected to go back and take a photograph with the president. Now, he wasn't wearing his Q shirt that he wore to the rally. He had to change his Q shirt and put on more formal wear, meeting the president. Of course, you're going to do that. But in a Q drop, this is what Q had said. I'm actually going to reference it here really quick. It said, important moment in time. The picture will be the signifier. The signifier will force the Q, and the Q will be answered. Where we go one, we go all, in 3 parentheses, is what Q said in that drop on October 5th. So that was about 3 weeks ago. Now, VIPAnon took to 8chan today and gave us the pictures of the photograph he got back. You can see here he is with the president, first 2 pictures. And then in the middle one here, you can see on the back of the photograph, Donald Trump himself, or it might have been one of his assistants, who knows, doesn't really matter who signed it. What matters is what is on the back of this photograph. You can see there's 3 parentheses with a plus in the middle, and it does look like Donald Trump's handwriting to me, so I think DJT himself signed that. Of course he would. If that has to do with Q, of course he's going to sign it himself, but we get the plus there. And that plus, what that means, now I'm going to reference this photograph just went to really quick here. This plus is basically Donald Trump confirming that he is Q+. So let's reference QAnon.pub. Go to the Q posts themselves. And throughout the months, throughout the last year that Q has been posting, every so often we get this drop that's signed off, not with the normal Q, but with a Q+. And these are all the drops that have had a Q+ in it. Maybe, you can see there might be 20 of them so far. Dated starting in February, March, April, maybe about 1 a month. We get a Q+. A lot of them are very inspirational. Be loud, be proud. They never thought she would lose. Where we go one, we go all. But that Q plus, now many people, myself included, have speculated for quite a while now that Q plus is a particular person because of the tone in these drops. They're not normal Q tone in the posts that have Q plus, and the fact that it is a Q plus. I mean, it looks like it's a signifier to a particular person. Well, with this photograph coming back, Donald Trump putting a plus in 3 parentheses, Q in the drop had where we go one, we go all in 3 parentheses, saying this picture is going to be the signifier. The signifier is going to force the Q is what was in that drop, the Q, and then Q plus being signed off in many drops. I think this is confirmation that Q plus is Donald Trump. And what excites me right now is the fact that Q said this signifier is going to force the Q. So I'm really curious as to what the fallout of this is going to be over the next few days, week or two or so. I'm really wondering if the Q, what is QAnon? That question is going to get asked to the president one of these days. So I'll have my eyes open for that. Okay, now let's talk GAB. Poor GAB. GAB, the free speech alternative social media network is what we could call it. It has been getting grilled. So after that shooting in Pittsburgh yesterday, where that shooter happened to have a GAB account and was happening to be posting hateful things on his GAB account, then goes and pulls that event, whatever the cause was, goes and pulls that event in Pittsburgh. Well, GAB is getting the heat for it, and they have been no-platformed or deplatformed on Stripe, so no payments to them through Stripe. They've been deplatformed from PayPal. PayPal cut their services with no explanation, no reason given. PayPal cut them, and then their servers as well. Their server company, Joyent, cut them as well. So GAB is really on the fritz right now. They are just wading in the water, and it really sucks. It really sucks to see the absolute gutting of GAB, and it's something that I pretty much called outright. Once I saw that event happen, and then I saw the fact that the shooter had a GAB account, didn't have a Twitter, didn't have a Facebook, like most of these, we'll call them patsies, in these particular false flag events have. This dude had a GAB account. And when I saw that he had a GAB account and he was posting a bunch of anti-Semitic, anti-Trump, anti-Q stuff on there, I tweeted this and I said, was he on that platform to set up GAB? And that's exactly what it looked like, because GAB was hit hard, all sorts of propaganda being sent their way. They were deplatformed by all those big companies. Sucks, man. I really hope they don't go away. They have just been getting grilled, being called alt-right, Nazi sympathizers, anti-Semitic, every name in the book being sent their way. So poor GAB. And not only that, but like I said, I think that shooter had a message to Q, because in one of his GAB posts here, he said, hashtag QAnon is here to get patriots that were against martial law, basically throwing shade on QAnon. And what was interesting is that in the mainstream media, of course, the mainstream media, they were using their anti-Semitic talking points and talking shit about GAB, but a couple mainstream outlets were actually throwing shade on QAnon. One of those was Fox News. A guy on Fox News, I'll link this tweet down below. I won't play the video, but you can watch it if you want. Quick 20-second video at the very end. Dude couldn't even say QAnon correctly, but he was trying to claim that the shooter was a pro-Q individual, a Q follower. Not the case at all. Completely fake news coming from Fox News. And not only that, but the BBC was reporting that, there they are throwing shade at GAB, but they were reporting that he was also a supporter of the QAnon conspiracy. Again, fake news. Obviously, if you look at his GAB posts, he was anti-MAGA and anti-QAnon. So just fake news to be on alert for. Of course, that is everywhere these days. That's why we have people on YouTube and Twitter, right? That's why YouTube and Twitter and Facebook are trying to censor everybody putting the truth out there, right? Like clockwork. So that's pretty much all that I wanted to share in regards to GAB and in regards to that shooter that I found over the past day. Now let's talk about this article I found on the Washington Times about Huber. John Huber hitting the mainstream airwaves here. Washington Times saying John Huber's FBI Justice Department probe shrouded in secrecy. And in reading this, there is some really good lines in here. Wouldn't be good, wouldn't mean anything if you didn't follow Q, if you didn't have that backstory, but the Anons know, right? The Anons know, and the not-so-Anons like me and the other people out there, they call fame fags on 8chan, cracks me up. We're the fame fags, because we put our name and our faces out there, but each step is necessary, you know? All the anonymous diggers on 8chan are just as necessary as us fame fags are trying to get the message out to the wider audience. But let's go through this article. I'm going to show you guys a couple of my favorite lines in here. And basically, to begin, it says roughly 1 year after U.S. Attorney John Huber was appointed to investigate whether accusations that the FBI and Justice Department abused their powers during the election season, his work remains shrouded in mystery. And then down here it says, I would just like to know what he's doing. Representative Jim Jordan told The Times, I'll take anything. All I know is we haven't heard a single thing about what he's doing. Interesting. Really clamped down, huh? And then not only that, but Mark Meadows also wondering what's going on, asking Jeff Sessions for an update. Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows sent him a letter. Sessions a letter for an update. Both of them are like, wow, what's going on? All this secrecy, blah, blah, blah. And then later in this article here, it basically says, Mr. Sessions said Huber is reporting directly to him, which may explain why so little is known about his actions. And my favorite line in this is the very last one. It says, I'm not worked up about the lack of action because I know a lot of time you don't think anything is going on, and then, boom, someone is indicted, he said. Did anyone really expect mass indictments of people in the FBI? Huh, interesting. Again, if you have that backstory, Anons know, if you have that backstory, you know what's John Huber been doing. Well, we got, 55,000 sealed indictments filed in the last year from around the country right now, right? It's about the end of October, so we'll be getting another month's count added to that 55,000 in just a couple days here. So we could very well say about 60,000 now sealed indictments from around the country being piled up. I wonder why Huber's work is shrouded in mystery. But now, not so much mystery because, of course, it's hitting the mainstream in the Washington Times right here. And I think this is a very strategic article to come out at a very strategic time. Just wanted to make note of that. This article came out 2 days ago. Maybe we'll see Huber getting activated very soon. Want to make a couple notes on the Walk Away. So that Walk Away campaign held their event in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Of course, the mainstream media, they were trying to say that only a few hundred people show up, and I thought it was interesting that the mainstream media kept calling it a protest. It was a protest. No, they weren't protesting anything at all. It was a support campaign, support for people walking away from the Democratic Party. And not only that, but it wasn't a couple hundred people. In fact, there were, I think the count was 5,500 to 6,000 people there marching through the streets. I talked to some people that were there. I saw some videos and live streams of people there, and it looked like a fantastic time, very happy time. Luckily, nothing went down at that event. But, of course, the lies in the mainstream media like I was talking about, not a protest. All right, guys, so next article that I want to talk to you guys about here, we've got hundreds of U.S. troops heading to the border to deal with the migrant caravan. So we have 800 soldiers that are heading to the border to add logistical support to the 2,100 National Guard troops that are already there. And this is just good news because we've got that migrant caravan, which, quite frankly, I haven't heard too much of the past couple of days because of the we could say the false flags in the news. So that kind of left the airwaves, but we have a bunch of soldiers going to the border now to basically protect us from this invasion. And I find it real interesting because how often do we actually get soldiers deployed in our own country here, right? What does that make you think of? Makes me think of that executive order that was passed at the end of 2017 that created a state of national emergency. The human rights abuse executive order, remember? That actually gave the president power to deploy troops because of that national emergency that was created in that executive order. So this is very doable. And I personally think not only are these troops being sent to the border to deal with the potentials of that migrant caravan, but hey, trafficking rat lines are very easily cut when you have troops at the border, right? So I think there's multiple reasons that we're seeing this go on. And then last few things I want to talk to you guys about, vaccines. So again, this is something I'm going to keep reiterating as we go through, I don't want to call it flu season. I want to call it flu shot season, because it's always the season that they try to give us the propaganda about the flu shots about. And this mainstream media BS article, 7 facts about vaccines everybody should know. And when reading this, I would just read everything backwards, because that's normally what you have to do with a mainstream media article to get the truth out of it. So let's see. Myth: vaccines do not really work. That's actually a true statement. They don't really work. They don't really work as they tell us, right? Myth: all vaccines contain the live or active form of the pathogen. Well, not all of them do, but sure as hell a lot of them do. Let's see here. Myth: my child is healthy and does not need to get vaccines. Truth: your child is very healthy if you take care of them, and damn right they don't need vaccines. Myth: vaccines are not safe. Truth: they're not safe. They actually do kill. They actually do maim. And you're injecting heavy metals and mercury, aluminum, nanoparticles, aborted fetal tissue, who knows what else into you. So, again, just read it backwards and reject the poison, and you'll be safe. And then I've seen this article floating around too, kind of on that same subject of health. This one is talking about lithium, how our drinking water could help prevent suicide. And I read this, I'm like, what the heck? Now, actually, the premise in this article stating that lithium could help with bipolar disorder is fairly truthful. I've seen evidence out there, and I used to work in health food stores. We had lithium on the shelves that people would buy, and it would help them with their brain. It would help them either sleep. People would get it for their mood, and yeah, it would help. But the thing is, if you add lithium to water, well, A, you're going to be adding an inorganic form of lithium to water. So if you're adding an inorganic form of a mineral to the water, it's very easy to drink too much of it, right? And then you get lithium toxicity. So that's a worry there. Not only that, but why worry about adding lithium to water to help with people's brains? Why not take the fluoride out of water to help with their brains? Makes sense to me, right? But probably doesn't make sense to a lot of other people out there because they got too much fluoride in their brains. So hey, man, people will get it. People will start getting it. A lot of people I see actually getting the whole fluoride issue, and a lot of municipalities are rejecting fluoride in their water supply as well, which is a very good thing. And then last thing to share with you guys, news on Winston Shrout. If you're familiar with who Winston Shrout is, he is a gentleman that tries to help people understand the idea of natural law and our straw man accounts. Now, this is a very deep subject. I'm not even going to begin to get into it here because it was something I came across like 4 or 5 years ago, and it just rocked me. But the idea that we all have these strawman accounts in our name that we're not told about, and then the banks basically take these and trade them as bonds on certain markets, and we are essentially, we're cattle to the wage slave system that our corporate controllers, our social engineers have made. Well, anyway, go check into the strawman accounts, and there's a blog out there called the Stop the Pirates blog. I remember reading that years ago, and it just enthralled me with the information on there. Anyway, Winston Shrout is a person who is trying to educate people on how to become sovereign humans in the sovereign citizen kind of movement there. And Winston Shrout was sent to prison for 10 years last Monday. They sentenced him to 10 years in prison, which was half of his 20-year term. He's a 70-year-old guy, so it's basically a life sentence for him. And this is just awful. There's a lot of actual fake news, we could say, in this article about Winston Shrout's sentencing, saying that he was delusional and gullible and frauding people and all this stuff, but all that he was doing was getting himself out of nonsensical tax statutes. We're not going to say tax law. We'll say statutes here. Very important distinction between laws and codes and statutes. But anyway, conversation for another time. Winston Shrout going to prison. Very bad news. Very sad to see. And man, we need a We need a redo. We need a redo of all these systems. We really do. I know it's coming. I know we've got some swamp to drain first, but there are people like Winston here being put in prison for stuff he just shouldn't be put in prison for. So anyway, just wanted to make that known, put that out there because I support him. And if you are unaware of those certain things, the idea of becoming a sovereign citizen and what the whole idea of a straw man account and everything being registered as a corporation in this world, us and our country, etc., look into those subjects. Very deep rabbit holes to connect with it all. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. That's it for this one. I'll be back very soon. Take care. Done.